Okay, so I saw a thread that says something to the extent of this year, I told myself that I would fail 1,000 times. I tried to fail 1,000 times. And then she t goes on to say all the things that she has gained by doing that. And as we think about the new year and our new goals, I think my number one goal is to pretty much follow what she said. And I try to scroll through threads to find it, but I like this idea a lot of make the goal to fail. And then from that, you will succeed, right? Because I think that will really help. I think overcoming fear will get you much further in life than thinking or ideating or ruminating, right? Because the moment, at least in my life, where I've stopped thinking through all of rejection and I've tried to stop avoiding rejection. I've just done stuff and I've won. Like when I decided to run for Miss Ghana USA, I had never been in a pageant before. I can barely walk in heels. And somehow I was the first runner up. And because I was the first runner up, that opened so many opportunities for me. One, I'm Ghanaian. I spent a lot of time in Ghana, but then it gave me connections. It gave me um, connections and inroads with other movers and shakers in Ghana, which made the things I wanted to do with my education platform so much easier. I got TV interviews, radio interviews, I got scholarships donated, I got buildings partially paid for because of this one thing that I said, you know what, if I get rejected, I get rejected, but let me try. So I think in 2026, my goal is to be comfortable getting rejected. Because I think when you're comfortable getting rejected, for me, you stop thinking so much about the no being about you as a personality trait, and it's just data. It's just like I applied for this thing, five other thousand people applied for this thing. I did not make the best argument, or I didn't. Because here's what I'm also learning. And I don't have a script for this YouTube, so have a conversation with me. What I'm learning about, selling and getting jobs and getting opportunities is yes, it's selling, but I think I used to think selling was convincing people that they needed the thing. They needed my services, they needed to hire me. And what I've learned from my success in getting multiple six-figure roles, remote roles, getting promoted, getting success in my career and opportunities in my career now that I'm bringing this more to more contractual opportunities and looking at different ways that I can thrive, is selling is about really understanding people's problems, is doing the research to understand someone's problem and then offering them a solution. And once you're able to do that, I think you skyrocket and you become the no-brainer answer. Now, you can't do this if you're always in your head. And I think that's where I lost myself a lot because I would be in my head so much about things and I wouldn't allow myself to think through, well, um, yeah, I wouldn't allow myself to think through what could happen next. What would happen if I just did the thing without having all my ducks in a row? And when I started allowing myself to do that, and I started allowing myself to say, okay, I've done the research. I know what the problem is to be solved. Let me offer that. That's when doors open for me. And I feel like I went a little bit off, so hopefully that made sense. And I realized that the more you apply for things, the more rejection you get, the more data you get to understand what the problems are that you need to solve. And the more you learn how to quickly identify problems. And that was really, really helpful. So if you are someone who does high level work, so you're someone who um, you're trusted a lot, you're relied on a lot, but yet you're not getting where you need to go. What I've learned is that much advice on the internet and just in mentorship and leadership says volunteer yourself for work because the idea is that you cannot get promoted until you've proved that you're doing the job, right? So you need to be doing the job before you get promoted into the job. And I do still pretty much align with that advice, right? Because unfortunately, that's just how it works. You need to prove that you can have results and then you will be promoted. However, what I've learned is I used to think that, oh, well, if I raised my hand and did the job and I did it really, really well, then everyone would see and hire me or promote me or give me a raise or whatever the case might be. And what I learned is I know not only do you need to raise your hand, but you also need to raise your voice, right? So you need to also, once you're doing the work, you're putting that everywhere and you're saying it loudly and often, whether that's daily in meetings, Slack messages, weekly in emails, whatever the case might be, any platforms that your company uses to rate you, you need to put it out there. And I'm reading this book, Careless People by Sarah Wynne Williams. She used to work at Facebook. And she talks about how at Facebook they had an ally button or something like that, where men would press this ally button that will go on people's internal Facebook page that pretty much signal that, hey, this other man has acknowledged that this man is a good ally. So if you heard some other man back up a woman in a meeting, you would press this ally button for them. But what it does is that the Facebook internal profile of yours gives you more points because now you're an ally. And then you end up during promotional seasons, you're like, oh my gosh, you're such a great ally. Your colleagues are noticing this about you. And all that was friends helping friends. So you need to create those systems for yourself, whether you're creating a system where you're promoting yourself, where you have other people promoting you, use the tools within whatever company you're at, whatever people care about, whether it's a shout out during all hands, whether it's an email, I do not care. Figure it out for your company and make sure you're visible there. That is how you get promoted. And does that mean that going to the theme of getting rejections, does that mean that as you try to navigate the politics of your office and figure out who is your ally in this, you might get some rejections? Yes, because you might reach out to some people and you might reach out and say, hey, I would love for you to write, this thing for me, this review. One thing I learned this year was to make your own review cycles. And what I mean by that is in my former job, we had peer reviews, meaning that every, I think, 6 months, you could select a number of people who would write a peer review for you and vice versa. In my current company, that's not a thing. It's it more or less works informally where your boss asks people questions, or like I said, in my company, what I assume is happening is that they are mining Slack and seeing what are people saying about you in Slack. And that's what goes into your performance review. So what one of my coworkers did and what I started doing too is that I would create my own survey and sending out to my coworkers to say, hey, we just worked together on this project. Do you mind writing a quick review of me? Now that leaves you up for rejection because they could say no. And that's feedback. Because if they're saying no, that means it's probably something there's nothing positive they can say about you, so they don't want to do it. Or it could be time. It could be that too. But it's up to you to, again, ask again and be like, hey, why don't you feel comfortable doing this? And if it's, hey, I just don't have the time right now, fine. And in corporate, usually people that's not something that people say no to if it's just a time issue. So it's probably more of a performance thing. And as much as you can, try to figure out what performance issue they're struggling with that they don't want to write down. And that can help you move forward later. So there is some room for rejection there, but if you do it right and if you continue doing it and get that data, eventually by the time performance season comes around, not only have you received a ton of feedback that you can share with your boss or whoever, you've also had goodwill with other people because presumably if they're writing you a recommendation or feedback, you're writing that for them too. So now you have people in your pocket who will vouch for you when it comes to promotions. Now, this is not where I thought this was going to go, but that's what it is. So in short, a psychological experiment is essentially what I'm trying to do with this $1,000, this thousand rejections, right? And it's a bit of a nervous system retraining. It's a way to decouple identity from outcomes and just say, hey, I'm going to put something out there. I'm going to ask for things and see what happens. And by collecting rejections, you're really collecting data, and that hopefully will turn into wins sooner than later. And for me, I know in like my career, I'm going to be asking for a title change, asking for more money, pitching myself for something I'm not ready for. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the last one, pitching myself for something I'm not ready for, especially if it's more work, I probably will get. So then it's up to me to also push for that title change, push for more money, right? And learning how to change my internal monologue, how to play the long-term game, how to practice, rehearse, research that is going to get me where I need to go. So maybe I'll get 1,000 rejections, but hopefully a year from today, I will tell you about the untold number of wins that'll come out from it. So with that said, most people, including myself, don't need more confidence. We need more clarity in what we're asking for. So that way we're not asking vaguely, we're not pitching defensively. Um, we know our leverage walking to a situation. So this is what I see over and over with people I work with myself, and this is where I support